And TJ, let me know if you have to start YouTube. Um, on YouTube, it says if you go to videos, only, okay, so we're recording already. So only the videos are showing, a handful of videos are showing up, but all the lives are only showing up under lives. They're not actually showing up under videos. So somebody would have to navigate over to lives, and I don't know how to resolve that.
Yeah, we're about to go live.
Oh,
Speaking of live, it's taking quite a bit of time.
it says we're on YouTube.
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
My computer says.
Don't know if you
We're
started the
live.
recording to your local computer, but
Oh, we are recording. We are live, and here we are. Triple T, number 163 on February 11th, 2025. Woo. Yes, it's been a week. And I'm so glad to be here with you guys. My name is TJ Zebel. I call myself a professional problem solver, which I always follow up with, no, I don't know everything. I will never claim to. I just have a unique way of asking lots of questions to help people find the solutions they are looking for. We are live on YouTube. That means I get to say, hi, Mom. Mom's watching up in beautiful, balmy Minnesota. I think the high today was something like a -4 for the high. Yes. I'm down here in Dallas, Texas, where it's overcast and kind of drizzle rained all day yesterday and all last night. So, let's see. If I seem a little bit off today, I am. I didn't sleep very good last night and been a long day.
Say hi to mom.
Huh?
Hey, say hi to mom.
Yep. Hi, Mom. What else? We got as long as we're talking YouTube, see, here we go. There's going to be a lot of squirrels running around tonight. The cage is open. As long as we're on YouTube, please do all the YouTube stuff. Click the subscribe button, click the like button if you liked the episode. Leave some comments, click the bell so that you get announced when we come back on. Doesn't cost you anything, but it sure helps me out. Let's see, what else? Website is still evolving, growing, all sorts of changes. So if you haven't seen the website in 7 days, you get to go back and play Where's Waldo and see what changes have been made. And the URL is thetswb.com, thetallskinnywhiteboy.com. That is what it stands for. And check it out. Give me some feedback. Would love to hear from you guys. I get the privilege of doing all sorts of crazy, awesome, random things. I get to help people with depression, anxiety, phobias, PTSD, smoke cessation. I teach classes for hospitality servers, car salesmen. I know, they're always like, well, no, they're both sales. And real estate agents. And I had one person, real estate, well, how long were you a real estate agent? I said, well, first you have to, oh, look it, we got another guest here. Yeah, cool. But I told them, you'll have to take my class to understand that it's not me teaching you what you learned about selling houses. It's different techniques for selling, building rapport, building the vision, values and criteria, elicitation, so that you know what things to build on while showing properties. And when my neighbor's house was up for sale, I was over there for most of the showings, and not one out of the many showings that we had, not one real estate agent did the stuff I teach. And a few of them, I don't know why they even call themselves real estate agents. They were barely a guided tour. Hi, I'm here. Here's the property. Do you like it? Okay, let's go look at another one. But enough about that. I do offer a free, that's right, no charge to you, 30-minute consultation. That is your opportunity to contact me and have 30 minutes of my time so we can go over what your challenges are, what changes you would like to see. And my promise to you is that if I am truly a fit, I will let you know. But if I am not a fit, I will also let you know, and I will do my best to make sure that we find you the person that will get you the change that you are looking for. Back to the thing I started over a year ago, which is introduction of the tie of the week. We're getting back to replays. Last week I showed you the remainder of my collection, to some of your guys' dismay. Like, why do you have 80 different? No, I don't have 80, but it's pretty close, isn't it? So again, finally got back to a little poo on the tie. That's right, I love this tie. Because
It's a good one.
Really serial like that. And it says, it may be hard to read, but all the little writing on there is bother-free days.
Well, that's adorable.
Yes, bother-free days. That's a good goal to have. And now we're at the part where I get to say, tell me something good. Tell me something from the last 7 days that we can celebrate with you. Who's got something good to share? Lenora.
Mark, do you want to go ahead?
No, go ahead.
Okay. I personally would like to point out my appreciation that Holly's avatar and me look so similar tonight. It's pretty awesome.
I noticed that too. I think that's awesome.
Now I have my official Triple T sweatshirt to match Holly. So I shared with you guys the other week that I am writing a book, and I actually amazingly finished a book, which is super exciting, and proofread it like a billion times. But I got it sent to the proofreader so far, and just a lot of she gave me such really lovely feedback, and it was just really nice to hear. So I'm excited to share it with you, and hopefully we'll get to share with you a cover at some point.
Awesome. Cool. Mark.
Yeah, I was just gonna say in the last 7 days, I just started to take some, I won't show the, but it's Shilajit, and it's supposed to increase energy levels. And man, it's been working gangbusters the last few days.
Oh, cool. I was wondering about that. I was thinking about getting some myself.
Well, I went with the gummies because I tried the original stuff that Rogan recommended, and it just looks vile.
Okay. Well, keep us posted. Anybody else got anything they'd like to share from the last 7 days before we get rolling? Rolling. All right. Well, oh, go ahead. I saw that.
Yeah, okay. Well, I spent a week with my brother in San Diego and had a great time. Really a high adventure, high athletic. I found out how much out of shape I am compared to him. I found out later that he's training to climb mountains, and I climb ladders. So we had an amazing time, covered a lot of ground, um, uncovered some kind of background on our relationship and how we both grew up, and it was a really good bonding trip. So
Awesome.
it was sunny in San Diego. Dipped a toe in the water, went four-wheeling, and went skiing. Not in the same day.
Right on. I ain't gonna lie. I miss San Diego a lot. I don't miss the prices. I don't miss the politics, but I miss the topography and the restaurants and the activities. There was, even though we're pretty much in the close suburbs of the Dallas Fort Worth area, there was a ton more of things to do in San Diego than around here. So glad you got to enjoy it. Thanks for the flashback. So now that you know the difference between ladders and mountains, what's that going to do for you?
Well, going through Joshua Tree, they say it's only during the nature trail. It is a 2 mile hike, and they say it's only a 300-foot elevation.
Yeah.
But I think we climbed the same 200 feet 5 times.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. Uh, my wife and I went out there for her daughter's wedding. It was in Joshua Tree. And so 3 of the days we were there were, yes, hiking the same 200, 300-foot elevation 72 times.
Exactly.
So, yeah, good
But
job.
it helped me expand my awareness, expand my understanding of self, of being able to push through more of my whiny self, and being able to know that I can go further when pushed.
Awesome.
And so my boundaries have been expanded. So that was a good time.
Super cool. Awesome. I'm so glad you shared that instead of holding that back from us. That's awesome. Mark. We're getting
You're on
there.
mute, Mark.
Yep, you're Mike, Mark. Not to be confused with Michael Mark.
For my 50th high school reunion in May.
Really?
Yes, I am old.
Hey, you're still here. Awesome. Very cool. Anybody else? I like this part. I like hearing the good stuff. Okay, well, if we've got all the good stuff, I guess it's time for the other stuff, the other good stuff. Tonight's topics. Tonight's topics are Interruption Candy, Chasing Fantasies, and R&D. And these topics are brought to you by my clients. That's right. Just like many of the weeks, working with my clients brings on all sorts of interesting angles and stuff, and this one is no different. Interruption Candy is actually from a client of mine who is actually doing quite well on TikTok and learning all sorts of stuff. And the cool part is they're kind of integrating a lot of the things that they've learned from working with me into their TikToks. And they said it's almost like review, because when they can put this stuff back out there, they said they've done a number of them where while they were doing the TikTok, all of a sudden they're like, oh yeah, that's what that means. And it doesn't offend me at all when they're like, I heard it one way when you said it, but I heard another way when I posted it. And I said, absolutely. That's why I always tell people the 3 most expensive words when somebody tries to teach you something. Anybody know what they are? I know that.
Oh, that's what it is. I always mix them up.
3 most expensive words when somebody tries to teach you something. I know that. I've been taught that before. I've heard this before. This is the 23rd time I'm going to have somebody try to teach me this. And the reason it's so expensive is you're not the same person you were the last time you heard it. And you're definitely not the same person you were the first time you heard it. You have more information up in this gray matter that will interpret what is being said differently. You've had different experiences that may click in. And that's where you get all these ahas, epiphanies. Somebody's teaching you something that you've heard before. You know this stuff. And all of a sudden you're like, oh, that's what that means? Oh, wait, oh my gosh. Like, yeah. And so that's why I've always been open to learning anytime possible. Because I don't know if they have a different angle or a new minute piece of information that they put in there from something they learned from somebody who learned something from someone they learned. And the reason I put this in here is Interruption Candy is a little pattern that I titled for my client. They've found with the interaction with their crowd, their people, that they have to kind of throw different things their way. Sometimes it's entertainment post. What they've recently discovered is asking 3 magic question number 3 questions. Who knows what that would be? Go ahead, shout it out.
Childhood memories.
Early positive childhood memories. And so they ask, when you were a kid, what was some of your favorite songs? When you were a kid, what was your favorite Valentine's candy? When you were a kid, and they said that the comments and the interaction was like, but after asking that way for 6 or 7 times, they didn't get quite as much interaction. And so they changed up to some cool pictures and some of the other stuff that I teach. And all of a sudden, bam, there was the interaction again. And so I coined it Interruption Candy. Here's some thought thinking stuff. Here's some funny break stuff. Here's some cool life stuff. Here's some good memories stuff. And just kind of keep throwing different things to keep them interacting with your posts. And I've got a couple of clients now that are trying to tell me that I need to get on TikTok and I need to start doing posts with all my stuff. And I'm like, well, I've got 162 recordings of Triple T that I could pull little stuff out and put in there, but then I've got to go through 162 posts of Triple T, find little stuff to pull out and edit and post. And so we don't know. I don't know. We'll see. Just like with Triple T, I didn't think I'd have enough stuff for 3 episodes, and here we are at 163. So who knows? Any comments? How's epiphanies on this one? Pretty straightforward. Now you guys will start looking at the posts that are out there a little differently, going, what's this angle? And maybe if it's somebody that you think you like a lot, you might want to roll through post number 7, post number 28, post number 45, and see if there's what kind of variation there's on there. And Lenora, I know you're posting a lot of stuff, so.
I was posting some stuff. It's so helpful. There was a time where, and you say it so well, and I know we've talked about it on here, when you say something that you say, oh yeah, I know that, and it hits differently. And the one for me this week, especially when, and I'm going to go with the fact that I am not alone on this. Hi, Kevin. I'm going to go with the fact that I'm not alone, and that you may have interacted with people where it feels like it's never good enough. And I've certainly interacted with people where it feels like anything that I do isn't good enough. And it used to be exhausting. And this week something shifted where it was like, no matter what I say, they're not in the place to receive it. They're not in the place to really understand that this is what I'm doing and why I'm doing it. They quite literally cannot hold it. They have no idea. And if I'm doing something and I think the standard is good and this is exactly what I wanted to do, and somebody's now looking at it from a different perspective, A, they don't have my perspective, but B, they're quite literally sorting for why it's not good enough, because that's the filter that they have on. So no matter what I do, even if I did it exactly how they wanted, they're still sorting for something else that's going to be wrong. And
Yeah.
that was something that I understood, and I understood, and I understood, and I understood, and like it got deeper, deeper, deeper. And this week it kind of just exploded, and it was like, wow. Yeah. I can't do anything no matter what, because that's their standard, and that's where they're placing the importance, where they're placing their values and the things that are important to them. And that was something that really, really stuck with me. So even though we can hear something along the lines of, try harder or do this or do that, I think there are times where we need to look at it from a different perspective and pull it in and say, is it meeting my markers? Is that important to me? And if I keep trying in this arena and I'm trying to please this other person, will I ever get there? Some thoughts.
And I'm so glad you brought that up. Yes, you've got the people that sort for sameness. You've got people that sort for differences. You've got people that sort for the good stuff. You got people that sort for the bad stuff. And heaven forbid you get stuck with somebody who looks for the differences of the bad stuff. And when you understand that that is just the shade on their glasses, that is the thought process that they've got. And I've dealt with them in my life as well, where nothing is good enough. Perfection isn't good enough because they'll find the flaw in the perfection. They'll figure out a way that it could have been more perfecter. Well, you could have done it a little faster. You could have done more of it then. Yes, this is a perfect cookie, but you should have made 12 of them while you were at it. And it does get very tiring, very draining if you don't. I've used the metaphor many times that getting hit with a 2x4 sucks. Big time. But there are different ways to get hit by a 2x4. There's walking behind somebody who's carrying a 2x4 on their shoulder, and they forget you're back there, and they turn a corner, and they crack you one. Hurts. But it wasn't intentional. Then there's the one that walks right up to you, looks you in the eye, and smacks you over the head with it. And can be the same pressure, same board, same place, everything. But it hurts more because you know it was intentional. Then, of course, the ones where you're walking on the deck and you step on the loose board and it comes up, cracks you in the head, and nobody was around. That one hurts, but you look around to make sure that nobody looked. And then there's the playtime when you're running and you're playing and you may stumble and fall in and hit a board. That one hurts the least. Proven. Why? Because you were playing and having fun. Same reason that people who, football players, they say some of those hits are the equivalent of being hit by an automobile going 30 miles an hour. And they get right back up and do it again. MMA fighters, some of the hits they take. If somebody just walked up and cracked you one like that and you weren't expecting it, you may not recover. So in dealing with people, there's a lot of times that if you know you're going into a hostile environment, one of the protections that I've taught is protective empathy. When you understand this is who they are, this is how they are, this is what they are, it may not protect you from the hit, but it will protect you from the hit hurting as much as it could. The other metaphor that I've used is remembering they're only words. And if you heard the same words from a drunk, meth head, homeless dude on the street that you've never met before, would it mean as much? No. You'd be like, dude, shut up. Whatever. I feel sorry for you. The feel sorry is the protective empathy. Same words, same energy, but you look at that person and go, wow, wow, how sad. I can't believe that you would say something like that. Any other additions, ahas, epiphanies to add to that? Mark?
Yeah, I had a couple of thoughts. One was that sometimes people are self-orders. So whatever you tell them, they have to take it inside, feel if it's congruent, who they are or whatever. Sometimes it's okay if they disagree with me, and sometimes some people will accept everything you say. Some people will argue with everything you say, but there are some people that are like self-sorters, so they have to take it inside and think about it and ponder it. That was the first thought. And the other one was, I don't know where I learned this, but the way people, best way to learn is to imitate, inculcate, and then innovate. Take the information in, make it your own, and then you're allowed to play with it. But there's a lot of people out there, as soon as you describe some new process or, some new way of looking at things, have you every reason in the world why it won't work.
Yes.
They tend to want to go right to innovate rather than, hey, just do it, imitate it, make it your own, and then you're allowed to play with it. That's my
Yep. Right on. Holly?
So I love the example you were giving about when like the 2x4 hits us because we stepped on it versus somebody hits us, that sort of thing of it is interesting to me. I've been thinking a lot about lately. The stories we assign to things sometimes cause us more problems in interactions with other human beings than the interactions themselves. And so a couple things. First of all, the story we have almost always is never right. So, you've got that person who cut you off in traffic, and the story you've got is they're a jerk. They don't care about me. And maybe the real story is, they're rushing to the hospital because their, 2-year-old child that you can't see in the car broke their leg, and they're so caught up in getting to the hospital they didn't even see you, didn't even know they cut you off in traffic. You never know what the real story is. But the other thing I've noticed is, and this one I still haven't quite got my mind around it, we get more mad at people for violating our expectations than we do for what they actually did, which is kind of an interesting thought because it's, somebody who, and this is kind of an extreme example, but assume that you've got some teenager who got arrested for murdering 3 people. And then you've got somebody who didn't come to somebody's birthday. And the same person might be more mad at the person who didn't come to their birthday than they are at the person who just committed 3 murders because, oh, we got to, worry about what was his history. Maybe he didn't know any better. They build a story, which we don't know the story. This person's been arrested. We don't know anything of their story. They could be very privileged. They could be very selfish, but we're just going to assume they didn't know any better. Maybe they have mental health issues. We're going to give grace to them. For that person who didn't come to our birthday, it couldn't possibly be that, they forgot about it or that they had to go to the ER. It's just, no, I hold this person to a higher standard. That's why I invited him to my birthday. So anyway, I just think it's interesting, notice, what are you getting more mad at? Are you getting more mad at what they did or the fact that you expected something different?
Exactly. And a lot of that is rooted in the foundation of values and criteria. Mike?
So, I kind of got to thinking about people who work against you to find flaws and kind of critique and all that other stuff. And I'm kind of coming up with doing the work on yourself to make yourself solid, to be able to find a strong foundation to stand on and your a strong understanding of your knowledge and goals and perspectives and future points of view. When someone comes along and doesn't know enough of the picture to really understand. They're like, well, you're trying to help it and talk to people and trying to help them. You can't make money doing that. Well, what do you propose differently? Well, I don't know, but you just can't do that. Well, you know what? I've spent a lot of time putting this together, done a lot of research, and I'm feeling comfortable that I'm going to be doing that. Thank you for that, but I'm just going to continue doing on with what I'm doing. And I think putting up that boundary of first understanding that they are not a safe individual to share in to, and also to understand that um, those things are going to come up and to be able to overcome those on your journey, just like climbing that same 200 feet over and over again in Joshua Tree will finally get you to that beautiful sunset picture of that we were able to experience. So, um, and that's kind of where I'm coming from is understand your perspective, reinforce your boundaries, shake off the past or shake off their dirt and clear your glasses and move forward. My opinion.
Very well put. Very well put. Holly.
I don't know why my mind just suddenly went down this. I love everybody's comments, by the way. Thank you. Always gives me a squirrel to catch. But another thought that came to me too is this idea of, how we all process, how we all communicate. I think it's also important for us to determine when is something a legitimate difference in communication styles and when is something an intentional problem, a red flag, shall we say. And I think sometimes we make both mistakes. Sometimes we see something that's a red flag and we just write it off as some kind of difference in the way we see things or no big deal. But then I've also seen plenty of cases where people, all it is just a different communication style. And the person's described as Hitler because they communicate in a slightly different way. So, and I will say, if you're in a therapeutic setting, that could be twice as damaging. If you go in and you just start communicating in your regular style and your therapist takes that energy and assumes that it means you don't want to change, you're just trying to be trouble, you're just, like if you start assigning these motives to somebody that doesn't have those motives when they were vulnerable with you and trying to change, you can install some pretty scary things too. So, I mean, on the one hand, you don't want to waste all your time, all your energy on somebody who is and I mean, it could be worse that just doesn't want to change. They could be much more negative than that. But just part of the reason I'm saying this is because I'm somebody who does sort for differences. And I've had some people, reach out and they're curious about it. They are interested. They want to know more. But I've also had people accuse me of being evil because I sort for differences. Because I see the differences, that means that I am only looking for the bad. And I'm just like, you don't understand. For me, the differences are the most beautiful things out there. So when I see a difference, I'm, to them, differences were ugly. That's why they look for what's same. But it's like, no, what makes you different? That's what makes you special. That's what makes you unique. That's what makes you you. So just because I see the differences, it doesn't mean that I'm looking for what's wrong with you, if that makes sense. So anyway, it's both balance. Both sides matter.
And I think that purpose, perspective, intent is really the background of where you have to look at what is the background behind that individual. If it is in love and support, then that takes on a different character than the history that has proven that it is a beat down and a cutting. And that is the voice of my life or what I've gone through. So, but I definitely thank you for bringing that perspective to me.
Lenora.
Clearly, this is an amazing topic for all of us. Um, when so the thing that came up a lot over the last couple of weeks was building trust with my younger self, because my younger self, and I know Mike, what you had just shared really resonated. Um, growing up in a you don't do that, that's not who we are, all sorts of criticism and shame and thought processes going on put me on like hyper guard and former president of the People Pleasers Club. When I would think certain things, so this is my mind goes and it starts at 4 a.m. and it doesn't stop until I pass out. When I hear something, or when I hear it, so I'll think a thought and I'll be like, "Ooh, they're not going to like that." That to me is a part that's like, "Oh, there's something here that needs your attention," and so I will do my best to go in after it. One friend used to call it triaging. I would triage the things that were coming up and how important were they, and for my younger self, helping them build trust, as in we were at one point having to be on the defense. I'm here now. This version of me and whatever amazing version decides to flow through me at that moment in time, so I have uber clarity. We're here. We can talk. We can speak up for ourselves. We can hold boundaries. Yes, things might upset us, but we will also do our best to be kind, but also stick up for ourselves and to also express ourselves. And then going back through memories of like, this was the time that I did that. That's how you know you can trust me. Here's another time. That's how you know you can trust me. And helping that younger part, there's like two key players. One's a very rebellious teenager and she's full of sass. Shocking, I know, you're all surprised. And one is a younger version and she's just in total fear all the time. Those are the two that go back and forth. And I quite literally will talk with them and help them better understand we're not there in that scenario anymore. And doing that, going through memories. Okay, well, here's something else. And quite literally showing them proof has really been absolutely pivotal in helping me realize I don't have to be in a state of chronic fear, or like I don't always have to worry about what people are thinking about. And there are moments where I am rock solid on it, and then there's other moments where I'm like, ugh. So clearly it's a process, but it's getting a lot better. So if that resonates in helping you find that you can trust yourself, that you're a beautiful example of wanting to help other people, of wanting to talk and building your skill set, and whether it's coaching or therapy, whatever you want to do, helping that younger version of yourself knowing that you can do this, and also knowing the people outside of you, as much as they love you, as much as they are close to you, they might not be able to see what you see. They quite literally cannot see it. And sometimes it's frustrating because you're like, why can't you see? Hello. And sometimes they're full on cheerleaders for you and they want you to succeed so far that you can't even see straight. And other times they will quite literally run up to you going, what's wrong with you? Why isn't it happening faster? And send you right into panic. So if you can recognize that that's on them, again, that enough status, that it might never be good enough, understanding that they're in fear and worry, and you watching you quite literally puts them in fear, worry, panic, excitement. Just watching you want to go for your dream, watching you want to actually not just say something, actually do something. It sets them off in a totally different emotional state unintentionally. And the biggest one that I've recently got is they can only go as deep as they can go. If they aren't doing their inside work, if they aren't doing that reflective work, if they aren't doing other things where they're working to grow, where they're working to climb mountains and repeat 200 feet 14 times from Sunday, if they're not willing to do that inside work, they literally can't see what you see and they can't perceive what you perceive.
Mm-hmm. And you can't judge a fish because it can't climb the tree like the monkey. And so many people try to. And that's part of that. I'm so glad you brought that up, Lenora, because that is a major challenge for quite a number of my clients. They find out they're different. We're not a clone. We're not a cookie cutter. We're not a robot. We're not a. And so many people put their expectations, which are based out of their values and criteria foundation. It's where all the judgment comes from, is your values and criteria. Same with them. And when you become a member of the People Pleaser Club, welcome to heartbreak and disappointment. And beating yourself up, because there are so many people out there that have no problem voicing their opinions. And a number of you have heard my description of people's opinions. Everybody's got one, and sometimes sometimes they stink. And if you run into somebody who's got a stinky backside, just understand that's on them. Don't let them spew anything on you. And sometimes it's easier said than done, but at the end of the day, you know what you know and who you are. And if you're working on yourself, you have to also understand there are going to be people from your present and your past that will no longer understand who you are, what you're saying, what you're doing. You have become that weirdo. And as far as I'm concerned, thank God. Because
Except
that's,
us.
yes, there are plenty of people on this planet. Go find some more weirdos that think like you, that talk like you, that want to grow like you. And that doesn't mean you have to excommunicate the people that you've outgrown. That's their journey. And you'll always be able to, no, I take that back. Erase, erase, erase. Control-Alt-Delete. You will have the option to continue interacting with them or not. I have some people, some of them are even family. They're on that side of the tree with the funny branches. And I'll still communicate with them. It will be in limited amounts. But it's a choice. I'm still finding new people that understand my new way of talking, my new goals, my new anticipations, expectations, all of the above. Holly.
I know we go over a bit, but just a few things about the people pleaser and building trust. I just had this download of sometimes it's not even about building trust with ourselves and getting ourselves to trust ourselves. It's about destroying trust with people who don't deserve that trust. Because at least when I first tapped in, it's like, yeah, I respect my opinion, but I know I'm always going to be there for me. So I'm going to prioritize all these other people. And maybe they're right. I also need to take that into consideration because, what if they see something I don't see and I need to. So I think a few principles to recognize. First, even the best people in your life aren't going to see everything. So it's possible even somebody, who's really smart and sees a lot, they still might have it wrong. And that's okay. So, decreasing the trust a little bit there. Trust those people, check in with them, but don't trust them 100% to the point you override your own self. But also recognize there are some people who have impossible standards. So you'll be constantly wearing yourself out and never be able to meet them. You have some people who actually, they may think they're even having expectations for you that are good, but they actually want negative things. So they'll get you chasing things that are actually harmful for you if you listen to them. But then there's another category of people that have decided that they don't approve of you before they decide what they don't approve of you for. And I
Yeah.
think sometimes this is because, maybe they just need to feel superior to you. Maybe they just like tearing your, maybe they're a sociopath or something. And so you could do literally anything and they will backtrack to find the excuse for why they don't approve of you.
Yes.
So the first thing I would do is I'd say, okay, that NLP thing of find where in your body you store the people that you trust. And this could be in your castle, whatever. Then store in your body where you find the place in your body where you store the people you don't trust. And then pull up those areas and find the people who are the people that you trust that you shouldn't trust. Find their picture, move their picture over to the area where you don't trust them. And then if you're finding that you yourself are in the area where you don't trust, pull that person over to where you should trust them. And you might also find somebody in your tribe. Maybe it's like, I trust mom and dad have good intentions for me, but they just don't get it. They don't know me very well. They still see me as the baby in diapers and they're worried about my safety or whatever. Maybe I trust them at like a 1%. So you can make the size of their picture really small. But I'm going to find somebody in my tribe who actually knows my path and actually understands what I'm working on. And I'm going to make their picture a lot bigger. And then maybe I'll take my personal picture and also make it way bigger. So anyway, just a few thoughts.
Awesome sauce. You got it.
I
And
love what
just-
you shared, Holly. Sorry, TJ.
Oh, no, that's okay. But I just realized that I've got 9 minis left to fit 2. For those of you that are watching for the first time or watching a recording for the first time, that's why when I start this, I say I've got 3 topics I'm going to try to get through. Sometimes we do, sometimes we don't, and that's fine. Because when we're rolling like this is really good stuff. But I'm going to try to segue into chasing fantasies because it's kind of in line with this. And chasing fantasies, just like the other ones, came from client. And they started thinking about their dating career, we're going to call it, and realized that a lot of the people that they were trying to date were because they saw the takeaway. They liked the person blew them off. Well, then they had to prove that they were good enough for the person, so they pursued the person. What happened when they got the person? They were like, no, that was a mistake. And what happened then? Roles reversed a number of times. Because the other person was trying to prove that they were good enough to be dating. And I called it chasing the fantasies. But I also pointed out the very reptilian part of that process. Because we, like animals, what's a possum do when there's danger? Plays dead. So do ducks and a bunch of other animals. When chased, they will lay down, drop down. And what happens to the animals that are chasing them? They'll come up and they're like, whatever, and walk away. Cat and a mouse. I've seen it so many times. Mouse is tearing butt, and I'm like, oh, where's the cat? Oh, there's the cat following it. And then all of a sudden the mouse will freeze. And the cat will walk right up on it and be like, Okay, well, fun's over. And as soon as the cat's walking away, the mouse tears off again. And if the cat sees the mouse moving, it's chased back on. Here's another interesting factoid that I learned as a kid. Did you know that if you swat a fly and chuck it into a spider web, the spider won't go and eat it? Because there's no activity. That's why you don't see spiders underneath bug zappers. But I found out if you take the same, catch a fly live, shake it up a bunch so that it's disoriented, and throw it into a spider web, as soon as it gets back its bearings and starts moving, spider will rush right over to it. Our reptilian brain will chase what runs and leave what stops. And so, in the Triple P protocol, when I teach them about cards, everybody's looking for their king or their queen, regardless of what that means to you. When we meet somebody, we put together these fantasies of who they are, and of course they're wearing their best pretty mask, or 4 or 5 of them. And because we're chasing them, we look at the mask and we don't take the time to look around to see what's behind the mask, kind of like Wizard of Oz. And when we stop the desperation, when we stop the chasing, and they start coming after us, it's much easier to ask the questions that get them to allow you to see behind the mask. And so in the metaphor of a deck of cards, what is the quickest way to find a king or queen in a deck of cards? Flip them as fast as you can and recognize what card they are when they show up. And don't try to turn a 6 into a king or a queen. Don't try to turn a 10 into a king or a queen. Which leads us to the what? Yes. For those of you that are watching on YouTube or watching the recording, you don't get to see the comment part, which is sad. I wish that it showed up, because Holly just found a Wile E. Coyote with 2 signs that said, "Okay, wise guys, you always wanted me to catch him. Now what do I do?" Yes, if Wile E. Coyote caught the Roadrunner in the first episode, game over. But this brings us with less than 60 seconds for me to try and fit in R&D. Do I have your guys' permission to possibly go into your hour?
Absolutely.
Okay. R&D in Triple P, and to give the quickest rundown of my protocol for dating, Triple P is perfect partner protocol, not perfect person. It's the perfect partner for you, aka as crazy as you are. Yay! Because they're a perfect fit. Believe me, I don't know that I could have a partner that's a perfect person. It'd drive me nuts. But in Triple P, I let them know that they will have to take 365 days off from being in a committed relationship. That's right, 1 year, no committed relationship. Oh, the looks and the pushback I get when I announce that is precious. Because they're like, oh my God, I came to you to find somebody, now I gotta wait a year. And I'm like, you've been pulling your stunt for how many years now? How's that working for you? Why are you here with me if you got it all figured out? A year is going to pass anyway. And the part you don't understand is you need to make this year more active than you've ever been. But this time is with activity partners, not dates, activities. Not dating somebody, going out and doing things with people who could potentially be your best friends. And it's 365 days to get really good at R&D, research and development, but in a different way.
I couldn't figure out what it was.
You're researching humans to develop yourself. 365 days of intense research and development, researching others, developing yourself. What do I want in a partner? And so you look at people of all types. Young, old, married, single, gay, straight. Wealthy, homeless. Every color under the book. You're researching humans and documenting what you want in your partner and what you do not want in your partner. And in reflecting on all of the research that you do, you find out what you can develop on yourself, in yourself. What can you change to make this perfect partner want you? And I've had a couple of clients when I bring that up, I'm like, what do you want in a partner? Well, it'd be nice if they were a multimillionaire. I said, yes, you're right. It would be nice to have a partner that's a multimillionaire. If they're a multimillionaire, what is it about you that makes them want you? Well, I said, that's the development part. Don't get me wrong. There have been plenty of times where the income ratio was very different. In fact, there have been some very famous ones. Johnny Carson, Paul McCartney. But not all of them ended up in divorce. Those were the ones that got famous because of the income difference and the cash out when the person left. So that's R&D, and Thank you for letting me get through all three. Any questions, ahas, epiphanies on chasing fantasies or R&D? I know I slammed through them in a whole 9 minutes. So
When you had R&D, especially because the first one was candy, I was trying to figure out what candy, reds and dots, like I couldn't figure it
Rolos and donuts.
out.
Then you can take a warm donut and put a Rolo in the center of it. And
That's much better than using a red hot.
and I bring that up because I also help with weight loss. So, bada bing. But that brings us into hour number 2. 5 minutes late. For those of you watching for the first time or watching the recording for the first time, I forgot to mention when we started this that the first hour is me doing the best I can to get through 3 topics. The second hour is devoted to you guys, so anybody on the call can bring up a question or a topic. I let all the people on the call answer first. If there's something I feel I can add to that, that's when I add my 2 centavos. And if you're watching this for the first time, you'll see a potentially common phenomena where I will ask for the first question, and we'll only have to wait for a couple of minutes while everybody's patiently waiting for somebody else to ask the question first, even though they've got 4 or 5. But Holly's like, ha, gonna prove you wrong. Holly.
So I have a follow-up question that's kind of related to the R&D conversation we just had. I'm just curious for everyone, when you're working on developing yourself and figuring out who you want to be, who's your ideal avatar, whether that be in relationships, whether that be your job, whatever that may be, and in any area, how much time, how do you balance the time of how much of that is self-directed and you researching, watching other people and saying, yes, I want that, I don't want that, and looking at yourself and saying, okay, I can see this is something I want to change. And how much time do you spend, so this is kind of a multi-layered question, how much time do you spend looking to your tribe, to your mentors, to your coaches to give you that feedback to help you see your blind spots? And also, how do you know when you could trust a mentor or a coach in a specific area?
All right. Second hour rules. Who's got an answer for Miss Holly?
Oh, go ahead, Mike. Holly, I'm gonna definitely need you to repeat the question because I my brain went one way and then I heard you keep talking, but I'm gonna be quiet because Mike had his hand up.
Well, here's kind of what I'm thinking. When you're doing your discovery, your observations of what you like and don't like, what kind of documentation are you doing? And what kind of evaluation are you doing? And with that, how many questions are you asking yourself? Are you asking yourself why it is that I like that? What is it about that I like? What is the detriment of that in the long term? And I think when you run out of questions and answers for yourself, that's when you turn to a trusted individual on the outside, my opinion.
Great answer.
Very great answer. So for Lenora's sake, I will try to repeat the question here. So it's a 2-part question. So I'll ask it in the opposite order. The first question is, when you're looking for a mentor or a coach or even a tribe to help you become the best version of yourself, how do you pick a coach, a mentor? How do you know you can trust them once you find them? That's one half of the question. And then the other half of the question is, how do you do the balance of self-directed work versus reaching out to mentors and coaches to help you see your blind spots and that sort of thing to help you decide what to work on? Or to make it a little bit more concrete, for example, let's say you decide you want to do a magic circle, DTI, deep trance identification, use all the names for it. You say, oh, I want to bring in these characteristics. Do you always go 100%? Well, that's going to come from my journaling, from me writing, who I want to become. Or do you ever go out and crowdsource with your mentors, your tribe, and see what things would be good for you to also add into that circle, just as an example.
God, Holly, I love you. Just adore you to pieces. Okay, so when looking for a mentor or a coach, I found the most helpful to be is how do I react in my interactions with them? There were some coaches that I've worked with who I could feel immediately they're good. Am I glitching? Okay. They were good, but they weren't my coach. And then there were other coaches where they had such a warmth about them that it felt like for me that it was like sitting with somebody that you could trust that is also sitting with your best friend that they feel like it's like a hug, but also that they can definitely guide you. And the difference would be as you test, can you open up more and share a little bit more and see how it goes? There isn't, I don't think I've went into anything, but I was also very, very analytical in the experience of working with a coach going, I didn't know I was testing. It was just like, okay, if I told them this, how was their response? And I'm very sensitive to judgment and shame. So if I felt like I was being judged, if I felt like I was being shamed, I was out of Dodge. Like, psh, goodbye. That's fine. Clearly, you're not my person that I can talk with. And I've actually worked with a number of coaches very specifically for topics or where I am at that moment in time. The lovely Holly Mignosi that TJ had introduced me to, she was somebody who I had worked with very specifically for speaking for TEDx. And as I got to know her, as she got to know me, our conversations shifted very, very quickly. And it was like, oh, she really, really gets me because she is somebody who had come from learning with TJ and learning with David Snyder. So that's how I knew that she was on a different level. But when I felt that, that was a completely different shift for me. Also to go in waves, as in put a time frame on it. What are you wanting to accomplish in a period of time? I've worked with people for 6 sessions. I've worked with people for 8 sessions. I've worked with people for 2 months, 4 months, whatever it was, and see where you are and definitely keep coming back. And I love what Mike had shared about research and development, as in, how are you measuring it? Are you headed where you want to go? Are you on the direction of where you want to go? And something that was, you mentioned, and I had written it down. If you're with a coach and they're talking, there is a fine balance, I feel, of being able to ask questions and then also being able to take what they share and move with it rather than take what they share and over analyze and like, well, why did they say this? Why did they say that? And kind of go the other direction where it's not helping you anymore. Now we're over here and now we're over trying to peel it apart and dissect what their motives were. I don't find that to be very helpful. The other one was the balance of self-directed. So when I've actually never done like DTI, as in, I think Holly, you were the only one that you did it in the class that we were in, Pillars of Power, where you step into this avatar. Yes, hands down, hands down. I have, though, had conversations with people of, what do I need to learn? What do I need to get? Especially people who I can go from having a lovely conversation to going, oh my God, they see right through me. And before I know it, I not like feel like imposter syndrome, but I definitely feel like a young part of me is quite exposed. I've had those conversations with those people, and I've literally said, okay, what's going on here? Why am I so uncomfortable? Where did my version of me that I need, where did she go? Because she's not showing up here and she needs to. That has been helpful because I can find those younger parts and I can figure out where that insecurity is and then have that conversation as I need to and move forward. Helpful to you.
Wow. Good stuff.
Like, was there a lot in there?
Yes. A lot of
Hopefully
good
it's
stuff in there.
It was helpful.
One thing that I was going to toss in quick, when you're looking for a coach or mentor or something like that, it's nice to have rapport and get along with them, and they're really cool, kind of like a good buddy. But you also need somebody, like a lot of times when I'm talking to certain students or clients, I'll ask them, they'll ask me a question. I will ask them specifically, do you want a coach or do you want a friend? Because I'm going to tell you something that is probably going to sting for a bit right now. And that's going to be from the coach. It's not from your buddy. It's not from your friend. It's from your coach. And if you don't have somebody like that that is strong enough that you both trust each other, and yes, it is trust from the coach to the client, that you're going to be strong enough that when you said you wanted change, you really meant that you want change. Kind of like that little cartoon where they see a person that is crying and they're in the gym and they're like, I can't do this anymore. You're just trying to kill me. And the coach goes, that was one sit-up. We're just getting started. And right now is the perfect time of the year for that example. Why do I say that? Because all the gym rats are starting to celebrate that they're starting to get their gym back. I know, because my chiropractor is in the Hughley Medical Center, or the Hughley not fitness center. Anyhow, they have the gym there as well, and the rehab part, and a pool. Well, last month, the 2 times when I went there, gym was the busiest I've seen it in 11 months. And yesterday when I went there, not quite as busy as it was the last 2 times. And the person who's in charge of promotions and stuff for the gym, I talked to him a little bit, but he was a little hectic, a little busy, because now they're on the backside trying to figure out how to keep the new enthusiasts. And I think it kind of goes right in line here with research and development and finding a coach and figuring out what you want. Why do so many people show up the first 4, 5, 6 weeks to the gym right after New Year's Eve? Well, because I want to get healthier. And the people that work at the gym, simply go, well, that's a great goal. Sign right here. We'll let you in the gym. Have at it. And they don't take the time to go through values and criteria. They don't take the time to cast the vision. What are you looking for? What does fitness mean to you? What is it that you want to accomplish here? What is strong enough about coming here that will keep you coming here 9 months from now? Are you going to sign up for a coach? Does that coach have permission to coach you? And yes, I ask for permission when I'm working with my clients. I'm like, do I have permission to tell you things that you may not want to hear? Does that help at all? Is that any input?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Phew, got a lot to download there. Thank you, everyone.
Well, if we got that cleared up, I guess it's time for another question or topic. Who's got something for the group? Mark.
Yeah, I had a question that I wanted to ask last week, but thinking about it, again, it kind of evolved a little bit, and everything tonight seems to be dovetailing with it. And the question is, again, I saw this ad, I heard this ad on the radio, and said every successful business should have a podcast. And I was thinking, what would you want your podcast to look like? And during the week, and also, with tonight's topic, it's really about evolving the, the social mass. Okay, so what do it's a metaphor podcast, I guess, for how do you, how do you, manifest the things you want to manifest. If you were to go online and have a podcast, what would your goals be? And like Mike said, how do you track that? And basically what Ollie was saying and Lenora and everybody. But what would you want your podcast? What would you want your social mass to look like? Putting out there when you do a podcast. And I just wanted everybody's input, how like I said, a lot of the things that was said tonight dovetail with that. But yeah, that was the question I didn't get to last week, but I thought, it would be.
Good question. Okay, who's got an answer for him? Lenora.
I think if I was to do my own podcast, it would be conversations and stories about what the mental, emotional, spiritual game looks like, because I feel like there's so much out here in the physical, and absolutely taking action, hands down, is vital. I think just as vital is, what is your mindset? What are the voices saying? Where are you emotionally? Who are you surrounding yourself with? Because there are so many, and this is this is where I get very feisty about sales pages. And when I read a sales page, especially because when I would used to read a sales page and I would see all these things that were promised and I didn't get those results, I was so frustrated. And he's laughing because he knows how frustrated I've been at people's sales pages. And I think to me that is the most important because people will sign up for programs and people will put money toward things like, you know, even as it's a passive program, and if that's how they have to learn, as in that's the price that they're paying because that's where they are at that point in time, and then they never click play or they never watch it and they never embody it. I get very upset for people like that because they're really, a change is 1,000% infinitely possible, but people don't talk enough about what your everyday mentality has looked like, what it could look like, what to do about it. And I think that is the most important piece. So that would be something that I would personally share about my podcast.
Yep. 100%. Holly.
So the first thought that came to me, so often when I'm in Dr. David Snyder's world, I will say, what's step one? Which what's step zero? Which if you don't know for his universal persuasion protocol, step zero is know your outcome. And so, I mean, I can think of several podcasts I'd love to do, but they don't necessarily complement each other well. So they need to be in their own silos. Like, for instance, I could talk and talk and talk and talk about politics, but I guarantee I could also talk and talk and talk about, psychology and ADHD and recovering from, trauma. And I doubt the people who want to hear about, for example, let's say I did a podcast of how to reach your goals and overcome procrastination. I doubt those people want to hear about, how I would change the federal government if I were in charge, how I'm going to change the healthcare system, for example. So a couple of the things you want to consider is, know your outcome. What is my purpose of doing this podcast? What do I want people to be able to take away from it? Who is your ideal customer or ideal listener? Who is it that's listening to this and what do I want them to take away from it? And then kind of it doesn't mean you can't have 5 different podcasts, but tailoring each podcast so that whoever is listening to it is getting consistent information that goes with their goal for listening to your podcast. So once again, if I really want to focus on ADHD and the stuff I've learned about that, and for those listening, it might not be what you think it is, but, like I could go on and on about that, but maybe have a specific channel on that. And these are the things I've learned. These are the resources that I've had. Another question is, how do you want to get new content? Are you someone who just loves to just talk about your ideas? Have you journaled forever? Or, people don't necessarily realize how long it may take to have preparatory content. Or do you want to be one of those podcasts that's a call-in show? And you have a theme and you let your callers call in and then you get to fly by the seat of your pants, which could be kind of fun. And you get to learn from them. They get to learn from you. And then everybody listening gets to learn about it. Or do you want to do it more in a group format, kind of like Triple T? Which could be a great way. And I love the first hour, DJ brings the topics, and then the second hour, everybody who's on the call gets to bring the topics. So, that has the advantage to it that, there's never going to be an end to that kind of content. And you don't even necessarily have to come up with all of it. You just have to respond to it and study and be ready to answer the kinds of questions that need to be asked. Of course, it also has the side of, are you recording live? Does somebody get on there and say something that really shouldn't be going out to a live audience without a disclaimer? So like there's so many different approaches you can have to it. What do you find fun? What, do you prefer to do a lot more work up front and then have everything go smoothly? Or do you prefer not to do as much work up front, but recognize you're in a live arena and everything could go wrong while you're live? You've got, or somewhere in the middle, maybe you have people call in, but you pre-record it. So that if something does go wrong, or if it gets a little too personal, you can still keep it private, that sort of thing. So yeah, there's many, many topics I would love to do podcasts on, but it's about streamlining the content for each channel so that the audience gets a consistent product of what they actually want to hear.
Kind of like talking about the trauma of the politics of healthcare.
Ooh, I've got my new topic for my entire podcast.
Yes, and great answers. Yes, I've thought about that as well. I've got a number of friends that are currently doing podcasts, and um, I wouldn't. I've thought about doing one, but for me, this is my podcast, and it it is the concept of figuring out who you want to be and who you're going to bring in for gathering of information. I've had some. I've helped a couple of other people out with their webinars and podcasts, and yeah, we've had a few, shall we say, colorful interjections that was like, oh, click, yeah, that was fun. Okay, yay. Any other answers we can give to this one? Did you get what you were looking for, Mark?
Sure, I was just just a question. How do you how you would set it up? Would you be in a share, you and someone else to ask you the questions and interact, do something like, like Rogan does, or would you do, you know, in the house, or would you do a format like this, or what Holly said? I just, again, my brain went to Dr. Fraser Crane, calling, please call in.
Yep.
So, but yeah, a lot of good ideas, a lot of good input. Thank you.
Are you going to do one, Mark?
I have been approached to do one. Still haven't gotten beyond the initial stages. So, but I but I would like to do it in like a two-person arena where and then maybe have some call-ins. But all good. It's a possibility is all I can say is it's you know could happen.
One of the things I learned on, I've only been invited on two podcasts so far, and one was a last minute fill in, and they didn't know enough about me, and the questions they asked didn't flow. And so, if you're going to do a podcast, make sure that you have a chance ahead of time to discuss the topics, what kind of questions are going to be asked, and supply them with enough information about who you are so that the audience understands your relevance to being on the show. And if you're the one doing the podcast, same thing. It seems like it's almost better to if somebody cancels last minute, rather than trying to grab somebody and hope to gosh that you get somebody that's interesting, to just wing it by yourself and let them know that, yep, well, person couldn't make it today, so you're stuck with me, and here's the topics. Lenora.
If anybody wants to talk more about podcasting, I've been on a number of them for speech pathology, which is one of my careers, and also for coaching and teaching and mentoring. Lots of insights to share and definitely something fun. So I will leave it there in case anybody wants to have a conversation, or Mark, if you want to have a conversation, I would absolutely be thrilled to share my experience with you and offer some insights.
Holly.
Some of the things TJ was saying, and I may be following up with you, Lenora, just to I'd be curious to hear your insights. But another thing that if you are going to do just the guest format, which is a very common format, I'm just going to second that. The importance of listening to the person that you're interviewing and doing some basic, even if it's just a basic Google search on them to see who they are. That's just considered, it's not considered stalking. It's considered common etiquette. It's considered polite. Some couple examples that come to my mind. I don't know if you were familiar with Aretha Martin and David Webb, I think was his name. They were doing a discussion and she starts accusing him of not understanding because of his white privilege. And what she didn't realize about him is that he's black, for example. As just a really basic, she clearly didn't know anything about him. I've Douglas Murray talked about he was one of 4 panelists at the Monk debates. And on the other side was someone named Malcolm Gladwell, for those of you who know who he is, which is funny because I actually followed both of them before this. But anyway, they asked Douglas Murray why they had such a resounding defeat. And I know, spoiler alert, sorry. But he said, the big difference was that his side came to listen and they were actually listening to what the other side had to say. The other side came with an agenda. And he said they could see, they'd listen for a talking point and then they'd click off. And then they were also being disrespectful too. So they were doing specific things like calling them, like not pronouncing their names right and in ways that you knew was intentional. Just no matter who is in front of you, listen to them, show them basic respect, use the echo technique, use the 3 magic questions, even if you're doing that before the on the air. Get rapport with them, make them feel wonderful, even if you think they're your enemy to begin with, or you think that they're no big deal or whatever. And not that I think you'd do any of those, but just, when that person, who was it that was, I've been watching a few reporters who talk about their techniques to get celebrities. And they said, when your person that you're interviewing feels amazing, you're going to get an amazing interview. If they're having fun, they feel comfortable. But the second they start feeling challenged, they feel uncomfortable, they feel like you don't respect them, they feel like you're not listening to them, they're going to shut down and they're not going to tell you their best stories. They're not going to tell you their best arguments, even if it's a debate. It's not going to be a genuine discussion. So, yeah. Care about the person in the other seat, I guess, bottom line.
Awesome. Lenora.
Oh my God, Holly could not be more on point with that recommendation and those insights, hands down, totally. I was on one that I'm not even going to share the name of, and the person would ask me a question and then cut me off mid-sentence, like, and then they even posted it. And the next interview that I had, the person had gone back through my logs of interviews that I had shared and ones that were posted on my website. And they even said that person was a very poor host. They did not give you the consideration. And this next person that I was with that had that conversation with, still to this day, one of my most favorite conversations because of how considerate that host was.
Mm-hmm. Listening is a skill set. Interviewing is a skill set. And podcasts are a skill set. And podcasts, I think, is a combination of interviewer, listener, entertainer, researcher. And I've because of the work that I've done and the people I follow, and I've got some friends that I know quite well who have done and are doing their own podcasts. And a couple of them I'm quite impressed with. And a couple of them I was like, it felt more like a hobby. It was like, I feel like talking, and yeah, they put out probably 9-10 podcasts, and then they couldn't think of anything else to to do. And that's fine because they did it. They have the podcasts out there. You can still access them. You can, you know. So it again comes down to know your outcome. What do you want to accomplish with it? Who is your target market? Because that will define what you talk about, how you talk about it, and who you bring on to talk about it with you. Mark.
Yeah, I was just surprised nobody locked on to the metaphor. Like you said, again, using the podcast as a metaphor for self-work and to again, those were all stellar responses. Nobody seemed to focus on the idea of podcast being a metaphor for self-work or for emotional.
Can you restate your original question, Mark?
Sorry?
Can you restate your original question? Because I may have misheard it.
Well, again, my original question is, what would your podcast look like? And then I went on to say, it could be that could also be a metaphor for self-work or improving your social math.
Mm-hmm.
So, again, where we went with it was stellar. But but nobody seemed to catch that piece of it. That yeah, that could be a metaphor for self-work. The face we show to the world.
Yep.
Be a good title.
Yep. Holly.
I am so glad you went back and circled around to that. I'm just going through all the lists of everything we were saying about it, and it is amazing how all of that does apply to self-work. And like, for instance, if I'm going to be working on myself, do I make myself comfortable? Do I find out about myself and actually do some of that research? I'm so glad you brought that back up. I'm seriously, literally everything we said is going through my mind like, yep, that applies, that applies, that applies, that applies. So thank you.
Right on. Anything else anybody has to add, or do we have a new question, a new topic? We got a new person here. Yay! Just in time, if you've got a question that you've been hoping to bring to the table, Fran, because we need one right now. No pressure at all.
Unreasonable anxieties. Who's got something?
I feel like that was like the can of potato chips where you take it off, and that one was with snakes that shoot out.
I overanalyze everything, and it's a nuisance, and it makes me anxious. Oh, Holly's got something.
Yeah.
Cool.
Okay, I also have the same question too, so I'm looking forward to what everybody else has to say as well. The first thing that popped in my head when you said that is, so I was doing Jordan Peterson's Big Five personality, and we were talking about neuroticism, and I scored extremely high on neuroticism. I scored in the 97th percentile for neuroticism. So I was really, curious to hear this talk. And the first thing he said bizarrely calmed me down more than anything I've ever heard before. And he says, the first thing you have to understand about neuroticism is it's actually right. Because if you think about it, everything around us could kill us at any moment. And so, of course, the brain is wired to look for threats everywhere because there are legitimate threats. And now, we have to go to the next step of, is there a point at which focusing on the threat makes it more likely? And is the fact that, is there a certain point where stepping back, there's a sweet spot? I was working with somebody at my where was it? Anyway, somebody was telling me that she was really struggling with too much anxiety, but that her big problem was she couldn't get rid of it because she was afraid if she got rid of it, she wouldn't have enough motivation to actually get out of bed every day. And so I was like, oh, that actually makes sense. So, I'm echoing it back and saying, well, okay, let's find the sweet spot, find that dial in front of you. Do you prefer a dial or do you prefer a picture? We played around with that. She preferred a thermometer. So we kind of did like the money thermometer, but we did it with anxiety. And we just said, okay, there might be a little bit of a range even, but where's the range that is ideal for you for anxiety? Where and once again, that was a word she was using. It was a word that spoke to her as it could be a positive motivator. If that doesn't speak that way to you, don't use that word. I'll throw that out there for everybody. But, where's that point of it's just enough of anxiety, and you could give it a different name. You could call it excitement if you prefer, whatever speaks to you. Where is the anxiety of arousal, excitement, whatever you want to call it, that's in that sweet spot that is going to help you be focused. It's going to help motivate you to get things done and to become the person you want to become. And now let's take that dial, notice where it is now, and move it into that sweet spot. So a combination of, I think not everybody, some people could just get rid of it. But a lot of times the reason we struggle so much with getting rid of it is because we don't acknowledge the fact that it actually has a place, just in moderation, in its right place. And then just one other thing is learning to also believe, hey, you know what? I haven't died a lot of these days, even though statistically, when I look at it, I look at how many people are bad drivers, and I look at how many people, phone it in when they're building the car. There's so many things that could go wrong because somebody was not good at their job. And yet most things don't kill us every day. And yeah, we could look at, it's because of double checks, it's because of this and this and this. But I also believe that we are all here to fulfill a purpose, and we are not going to go until it's our time to go. And if we're supposed to have resources to fulfill our golden path, as long as we're open to those and allow them to come into our lives, nothing could stop them into coming into our lives. So just trusting the universe's plan for us that, even though everything is a threat out there, nothing can mess with that energy that's going to allow us to fulfill our golden path as long as we're open to it.
Wow. Look, that's sort of had a lot of things go click in my head, and the realization that actually I have had some external intervention to stop me having a major car crash at one stage. But for me, you kind of brought up that I spend a lot of time doing emergency management. I'm a volunteer firefighter and I'm involved with firefighting and crews and so on. If I've got a job to do, I can put the anxiety aside until it's all over, and then then you've got a good result. So you might go, oh, that was a close call, but it's not got the same impact as if it was if the disaster did happen. But being able to analyze the situation, and we're probably all over analysts here, and then have a plan of action. Once you start into action, the anxiety level kind of goes down because you've got something to focus on. The anxiety is a lot worse when you don't know what to do, for me. Anyway, any other comments?
Lenora.
Hello, you lovely lady all across the very big water gap that you and I are a part of. For me, and it depends. I've done my best to talk out loud, and especially if I'm like down in my office by myself or something, I'll talk out loud and I'll have a conversation with whatever version of me is showing up with anxiety. So I try to really get it out of my body. Another thing that I do, and it depends on, I don't know why, I can just tell you this is what I have to go do. I will jump for like 20, 30 minutes, which sounds ridiculous, but literally I have so much energy that I can't get it out of my body, and I literally just have to, and it's not like I'm doing like tuck jumps or anything. I'm just literally bouncing for 20 or 30 minutes, and it is very, very, very helpful.
That's actually physiological dissipating adrenaline. So,
Yeah.
using the long muscles, great strategy, physiology of controlling the emotions.
Yeah. Wow.
Oh, Holly.
Sorry, everything everybody's saying is bringing up more stuff for me. Thank you so much for reminding me of some of the stuff that I'd forgotten about forever. So one of the things that I heard a long time ago was whenever you're experiencing high levels of anxiety, take the anxiety to its end. So like, for instance, you might be worried about this person yelling at you because they don't like what you hear, but then keep going forward. What is it you're actually scared of? And sometimes it's, oh, I'm going to, somebody's going to die, or, and maybe it's a legitimate fear as well. But sometimes when you actually get through it, it's just, I'm afraid that my people pleasing is going to be hurt. And it puts it in perspective when you're able to push it all the way through. Now, if it's something that, so this is a Viktor Frankl kind of idea. He had a patient that was terrified of passing out and in public. And so first of all, even if you do pass out in public, it might be slightly embarrassing, but it's not like anybody died. You're probably going to survive it. But he also said, if it's paralyzing and you know that it's a little bit weird and you shouldn't be afraid of it, but it's still bothering you, he says, actually go out and intentionally try to make it happen. So he gave this person a homework assignment to go out and try to pass out in public. And of course, what happens is, seems like this big fear. They couldn't do it. They kept trying and trying and trying and trying and couldn't get themselves to pass out in public. So that could be a good one to do. And then, what Lenora was talking about jumping, look up trauma release exercises. Because so Chase Hughes is the one who put us onto this one. But every other animal in nature, they follow them. And so what you were saying, Fran, about you go into action and then the fear goes to the side. But what happens is we still need to give ourselves space to process it. And if we don't ever process it, and it could be, oh, this is not an appropriate place for me to cry. This is not an appropriate place for me to, panic. Good. So we put it to the side, but we never give ourselves space down the road to process the emotion. And so what they recommend doing is, if you look at animals, they do the shaking after a traumatic experience, and it shakes out and processes all of that trauma. So there are ways that trauma, like I said, trauma release exercises, TRE, are a way to allow your body to do that as well. But also, recognizing and giving your body permission to say, yes, it's okay that we put it to the side because we had a task to do, but don't worry, I'm still going to give you space to process it. I recognize that's important.
That's fantastic. And having the physiology come into the emotions and the somatic connection. I mean, this is so under-recognized in most disciplines. Yeah, that's so brilliant with the jumping or the shaking. Yeah, it actually does really work, just the same as a power pose works. So your emotions will follow the physiology. Cool.
This is another one. And friend, you had turned me on to polyvagal theory, and especially with the vagus nerve. And it depends. For example, like my go-to used to be my main default was going to eat and going to bake and then eat. So very specifically, the vagus nerve is connected to the stomach. So your stomach is actually more sensitive than your brain. Your stomach will pick up things before your brain, and knowing how to calm your stomach has been incredibly powerful and helpful for me. This is one I do like the breathing practices, but it's, I think I learned it here somewhere in Triple T, build your toolkit. And it's one of the things in the toolkit. Which one is going to work at that point in time? I don't know, but don't throw a new one at it. Just throw something that you've definitely practiced with, because that can really be helpful.
That is so cool. And you've actually triggered something
Yeah.
in my thought processes by saying that about eating and stress and so on. I mean, when you go into stress, first thing that happens is, or when you're going into emergency mode, the first thing that happens is the blood supply actually leaves your stomach area to feed your long limbs. And so for escape. And if you're eating, that brings the blood supply back to the stomach. So maybe that's actually a really good therapy, because blood supply is going away from your stomach in emergency action, eating and bringing your blood supply back to your stomach might actually be a really good thing.
That, and it also is very grounding, because especially when you fill your stomach, you then have all your blood rushing back down to come back into your body. And this happens a lot for people who spend a lot of time in their head. They quite literally leave their body and they're spinning, 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 spinning. And the way to get back down is to ground down into it. So they will eat.
So, comfort eating is a really
very
effective
much
medication.
So. Very much so. There is a massive reason.
Underrated. So people that are sort of comfort eating, take heart that actually you are self-medicating in not such an unhealthy way.
No, and even if you
other substances.
Even if you think about it, when you were a baby, usually if you were warm and if you had a full belly, that meant you were safe. And it's a way to get back to safety. So it's another connection. So it depends on which lens you want to look at it through. But it really, comfort eating is absolutely, especially when it's a food, like if you have a go-to food where you're like, oh my gosh, I can never say no to donuts, or I can never say no to Reese's peanut butter cups. It's because of that connection with that food that you had with that person at that moment in time. And that's what you're seeking.
It's so funny you should bring this up right now. I've just had a client who's told me she had an addiction to chocolate and sweet foods, but the ecology of, checking the background of that is that she has a lot of sweet food connected with the sweetness in her family. So, we have to be, if we want to stop the overeating of chocolate or whatever, we need to provide the sweetness in another way, or make sure that the sweetness is there before suggesting that chocolate, no.
Yeah.
Creating an aversion. That if the sweetness does need looking after, the comfort does need looking after before, that's so tied up with the food and the comfort.
Completely.
Like you pointed out. Yeah.
One of the most powerful techniques that I learned was, yes, definitely HMR, but very specifically in that memory, passing this ball of light back and forth, or it can be passing whatever symbol is important to them back and forth, from like almost like you're tossing, like gently tossing this glowing beach ball is usually how it comes to me. Passing it back and forth between person and between that connection that was there. And then as you breathe it in, letting that color, letting that sound, letting that energy, letting that feeling fill you up can be really, really, really powerful to help let them put the food down, but realize this is the sweetness that they were going for.
Perfect. Thank you. Wow.
Is it okay if I toss in two more?
Sorry. Be quiet.
Well, no, because we're down to 2 minutes left. And real quick, with the anxiety, is any of that rooted, or do you have clients who the anxiety is rooted in worst case scenario? One thing that I teach, and I have my clients write it down, is the saying that in the quantum of possibilities. Have you heard this one before, Fran? Okay. In the quantum of possibilities, best case scenario has just as much probability as worst case scenario. The one you will see the most is the one that you look for and feed the most energy to. And that gets them to understand that they're both there. They always are in equal portions. And so sometimes you can go through an exercise of, okay, tell me 3 worst case scenarios. And they could rip them off like that, just bam, 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 bam. And then I go, perfect. Now you have to give me 3 best case scenarios. And the funny part is, I've had them give me one and they go, well, that's it. That's the best case scenario. There's only one. I went, no, because you could come up with 3 worst case scenarios. And I bet if I would have let you run, you could have come up with 175 worst case scenarios. And you don't get to tell me that there's only one best case scenario. So you have to rebuild that. And another one that I learned that I thought was really cool, ABCs of gratitude. When they're going through an anxiety, they have to go through the alphabet and come up with 3 things they are grateful for each letter. And I said, and it can be something simple as A, apples, if you like apples. Air. You don't get to use the same 3 every single time you play the game, but it also works for when you're having troubles falling asleep. Some of us, all of a sudden the head hits the pillow and the squirrels are like, oh, playtime! Oh my gosh, I wonder if a centipede gets a Charlie horse, does he know which leg it is? Oh my gosh, I wonder if a penguin would ever want to ride a unicycle. Shut up! And so I'll do the ABCs of gratitude to work your way down.
Also, a very good antidote for anxiety, going like that too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm a little anxious because now we're out of time.
Another phenomenal Triple T, though.
Thank you. And thank you guys so much every week for showing up here. I don't know if you saw it, friend, but this was number 163. Yeah. So thank you all so much for being here, for giving up your precious commodity of time. I don't have the vocabulary to really let you know how much it truly means to me to see you guys here every week, and for the stuff that we share. You guys need to know, I learn a whole lot of stuff here from you guys as well. So thank you. And I hope that you have an amazing week. Feel free, those of you that are watching the live, watching the recording, feel free to reach out to us. Go to my website. You can send me an email there if you need. If you got topics, join us. You don't even have to know how to spell NLP to be on here. We're pretty flexible like that. So also got to say to YouTube, love you, Mom. Love the rest of you guys too. Take care. See you back in 7.
Good night, all.